What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy Rex, and today on Meet My Mentor, we are here again with Paul Hutchinson. And Paul is, as many of you know from the previous videos, he has created over 20 successful companies. He's one of the founders and partners in a $20 billion real estate fund. Paul is somebody that I've had the opportunity to learn many things from. He's obviously a huge goal setter. He accomplishes huge things, has a huge vision. So I just wanted to ask you today if you could talk to us about goal setting and what you specifically do to accomplish so much.
Thank you, Jimmy. I will say, you know, we've heard about goals all the time. Everybody says, goals, goals, goals. But, you know, what really helped me understand how important they were was a study that was done at Yale University back years and years ago. They asked the students a bunch of different questions, and they found that only 3% of the graduating class had clear, specific, written goals. Now, 20 years later, that 3% was worth more in net assets than the entire other 97% put together.
Wow. Now,
money isn't the only sign of success, but that's one of the most powerful longitudinal studies that I've ever read, is that 3%, it didn't matter what their GPA was, what their major was, the determining factor was who had clear, specific, written goals. So at that point I realized, wow, there's something here. You know, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to use it. And when I say specific, I mean to the point where you're writing down detailed details of what you want. And so I used to, when I was a mentor in my early 20s, when I had sold my company, my first company, done well, and I was a mentor at the University of Utah for a while with a lot of the young entrepreneurs, I would always sit down with them and I would write down 2 circles. This little teeny circle, this is where we are right now, this is the money we have, and this is the lifestyle we have, and the trips we go on, everything else. And then I'd drive a bigger circle, and I say, okay, this is ideally where you want to be. And I'd go through and identify all of the stuff that's there. I'd say, okay, tell me if every car in the world costs $1, what would you buy? I don't know, you know, probably a safe car. No, what kind really? You know, a Mercedes, what color? A black Mercedes. What's the inside look like? Why? You know, all of this stuff there, right? And tell me, where would you live? What would your house look like? How many bedrooms? Whatever else. And all of these things. Charity, what would you give? How much would you give? What lives would you impact? And the details of what that looked like. And because in identifying where that is, you see, the problem is, if you take where we are right now and where we want to be, so many times people focus on the vehicle to get there. So, you know, if my sister was my sister's a travel agent, right? And she worked for a long time as a travel agent, and she's now running a bed and breakfast now. But if I called her up and if I said, Tiffany, hey, I want to be on a 737 tomorrow at 3 o'clock. She would say, well,
where are you going?
Where do you want to go? Yeah. Right? That's silly. But if I said, look, I need to be in New York by tomorrow at 6 because I got a meeting, and then she'll say, okay, you need to go to the airport at this time and whatever. And it wouldn't matter to me what color the wings were,
right? How
many engines it had. If it was a 737, it wouldn't matter. I go and I get on the vehicle that gets there. Vehicles will show up in your life. Business opportunities, plans, people, everything. Those vehicles will show up in your life if you identify really clearly where it is you want to end up. And so by identifying that, it was funny too. I remember going through this with a young kid at the university, and I drew out all these things. You know, if every car cost $1, what would it be? And Mercedes and a cabin, and I love the outdoors and whatever else. And then I asked him. I said, okay, this is the first time you've done this, right? He goes, yeah. I've never really identified all those things. I said, what's your major in school? He says, well, I'm going into biology. I want to be a forest ranger. Now, forest ranger works. I said, well, why? Do you think that you'll have all? No, and it's because I like the outdoors. And he was taking a little teeny piece of that pie, determining his whole future. What I would suggest is identify the whole pie. Everything, what your relationship looks like, what your business looks like, what your charity looks like, what your house and everything else, and get really clear about it. And then continue on this path, but have the belief and faith by looking at it that your opportunities are going to show up. That airplane's going to show up to take you to Hawaii or to New York at the right time. And that is so important. And also, you want to write your goals in positive present form. I have, I am, I do, I achieve. I earn $1 million a month. I live in a 14,000 square foot home. I travel the world with a woman who loves me and is loyal to me. All of these positive affirmations of exactly what we want is so important. And you know what I did in my life, and I totally failed it some areas of my life. Some areas I did great on, right? but I was fantastic. My business career was fantastic and all these things. And I realized that I had written very clear, specific goals of what I wanted to create from a business standpoint. And they happened, in a lifestyle standpoint, and they happened. And I thought, you know what? I haven't ever done that in my relationship world. What does that look like?
What does my romantic relationship, my perfect romantic partner look like?
Exactly.
What does my great friends look like, right? Like,
and how do I feel about that? How does she treat me? How do I treat her? How does she show up for me? How do I show up for her? What does that look like? And so I was actually at a Tony Robbins conference, and he has this event in the middle of it that it is a UPW event, where he takes you and he has you write an area of your life and identify clearly what it looks like. And he takes you there to the point where you can smell it and feel it and the energy of actually living that life. And then comes back to where you are now and write down some more. And if you don't have it, it goes through this emotional thing back and forth, right? And I thought, you know what? I've kind of won at a lot of things in my life. I haven't won in that area. I want to use the same principle. Why the crap have I lived this long and I haven't used this principle? I'm going to do it. So I did, and I wrote down, and I didn't say my relationship with this person is. I said my relationship with the woman in my life is. I left it up to God and the universe to find that. If the person I was with wanted to change, great. If not, that's okay. That person would show up, and I was clear. I'm talking pages, Jimmy. Pages of what that looks like in my life. And I got so clear on it, and miracles happened. Like that very night, realized that I wasn't in the right place from a relationship standpoint. And very soon now, all these things started happening, and that showed up in my life, which was beautiful. And so whatever it is, if there's an area in your life that's not where you want to be, get really clear, specific, and write it down. Write down exactly where you want to be and what that part of your life. And when you're in the mirror, you're shaving a multimillionaire, even when you're not yet. You're seeing that, you're visualizing that. There's a lot of the principles of success come out of something I'm going to do in another podcast, talking about faith and belief and seeing it. And I'm going to talk about how the powers of God and the universe and everything else come together to make those things show up in your life when you can start harnessing that energy. But that starts with setting very clear, specific goals of where you want to be.
Well, I think you said that perfectly. A question that, when people ask me, they're not really sure what they want to do with their lives, not sure where they're going or whatever, I say one specific question. It's exactly what you just said. I said, if everything were to go perfect in your life for the next 5 years, what does your life look like? Yeah. And if they can't tell me, they're just winging it. They have no design for their life. They have no plan for what that needs to look like. And so I would encourage you, just like Paul said, get very, what were the three things? Specific?
Clear, specific, written goals. In fact, I'm going to tell you one really quick story. This is a beautiful story.
Perfect.
Beautiful story about goal setting. So my wife, the mother of my children, Tiffany, amazing woman, ex-wife, but still good friends. She was on the University of Utah Crimson line when she was in college. She was a very, very good dancer. She was a model for McCarty's. We got in a major car accident right before we got married, and I severed all the tendons in my hand, which I was going to be a surgeon. That's a whole other story. But then she broke her pelvic bone, and she couldn't exercise. She started gaining weight. She got pregnant after we got married with twins, and gained a lot of weight. She was well over 200 pounds, went from 112 to well over 200 after she had the kids, and then she had her third little boy, our third son. And then at 20, she was about 28 years old, over 200 pounds. I was 29 when I sold my first company. We had money and time, and she came to me and she said, Paul, I want to do something great with my life. And I said, Tiff, if time and money were no issue, because this is the question you have to ask yourself when you're setting goals. If time and money were no issue, and you knew you couldn't fail, what would you dream? If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you dream? And she looked down and she said, oh, you're going to laugh at me. I said, no, I won't. What is it? She said, since I was a little girl, I wanted to be an NFL cheerleader. I look at my 200-pound wife, and I'm like, you go, girl, right? And we talked over the next few weeks, and I realized she was serious. She said, when I was 14 years old, I was danced at a halftime game at a 49ers game, and I've always wanted to be. I saw those girls dancing, the 49ers, I thought that would be amazing. And here she is, a mother of 3, living in Utah, and 230 something pounds, wants to be an NFL cheerleader. And it was just a few weeks before Christmas, and that year for Christmas, one of the things I gave her, I went online and I found a 49ers cheerleader when their whole outfit and everything else that had hair similar to Tiffany's, but different face, of course, and I photoshopped her face in there. So it looked like it was her. And I did a really good job photoshopping, so it looked like it was really her in this outfit, right? And I put at the bottom, Tiffany Hutchinson, San Francisco 49ers cheerleader, and framed it. And I gave it to her, and she started crying. And she's like, oh, and she just looked at it, and she set it on her bedstand, and she looked at that picture every single night before she went to bed, and every single morning when she woke up. And this is a big part about goal setting, not just writing it down, but getting a picture, visualizing it in your mind. So she took that and she visualized that goal every day, and she wrote down, I am a San Francisco 49ers cheerleader. And she put on sticky pads and she put them all over the house, right? So she saw it, she saw it, she saw it. She started exercising 2 hours a day, every single day. No surgery, lost all the weight. And 1 year later, she went out to try out for the 49ers. There's 500 girls trying out. 3 spots available. She was the first pick.
Oh, wow.
It's powerful. She was the only girl that didn't live in California. She was the only one that had kids, only one that was married, and it cost us like $30,000, $40,000 on plane tickets just to fly her out there to practices every single week because she wanted to keep the kids in school here.
Sure.
But she lived her dream because she knew she couldn't fail. She knew, she visualized it every single day, and she wrote them all around, and that's what her goal was. So I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how crazy your goal is. If you write it down, you visualize it every day, and you're willing to do whatever it takes. 2 hours a day. It was funny because when we were going out for the tryouts, I told her, this is totally not me. Usually I'm you can do this, you can do this.
Sure.
There's 500 girls trying out. And she's 29 by this time, right? She's almost 30 years old. And she had written in the application, she had written the 29, but she made sure the 9 almost looked like a 1. You know what I mean? So I told her, I said, now I can prepay for a whole week at the hotel and get a discount, or I can just do day by day in case you get cut. And she looked at me and she said, Paul, did that really come out of your mouth? Of all the people that are helping me see what I can do, really? She goes, no, I'm not getting cut. I'm like, you go, girl, right?
Yeah.
And so we did the whole week, and sure enough, she first cut, the second cut, the third cut, and it came down just to like 30, and then she was the first one that they actually identified. Yep, you're on the team.
That's a beautiful lesson. It's a beautiful story.
All about goal setting.
I love it. So if you guys like that story, if you like this lesson, comment below. Actually tell us what your goals are. Make sure that they're written. So comment, actually type it in there, precise and clear. I'd love to hear what you have on your dream list, what you're going to envision for your life, and what goal you're going to achieve coming up. Thanks again. Subscribe if you like this. Share it with your friends. We'll talk to you again soon.